Welcome back, everyone, to Handelsbanken Mid Small Cap Seminar. This is you're currently in track number 4, and our next session will be with surgical science. But before we start, I just want to make some practical remarks here. My name is Michael Malmrup, Equity Sales at Handelsbanken, and with me on video link I have Peter Seestedt, who is a pharma analyst at Handelsbanken, and we will start with a presentation from Surgical Science, and that will then be followed by a Q&A session initiated by Peter. And you will also have the chance to ask your questions, and you do that by using the link next to the live video stream, or you go to menti.com and use the code 933738. That's 933738 at menti.com. And I will then relay the questions, and they will be handled anonymously. So with that, I leave it to you, Peter.
Yes, so good afternoon, everyone. And as told by Michael, I'm Peter Seestedt, part of the healthcare team here at Handelsbanken. And it's a great pleasure to introduce to you Surgical Science. And representing Surgical Science, we have CEO Gisli Hennermark. And with no further ado, I would like to leave the word to you, Gisli. So please go ahead. And thanks for participating.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for inviting us and Surgical Science. I am just going to share my screen here in a second. There we go. So now I hope you can all see my screen. My name is Gisli Hennermark. I'm the CEO of Surgical Science. And we have a vision of everyone on their way into the operating room to know that the surgeon has trained and been objectively certified in a safe simulated environment. And this perhaps might sound like a no-brainer, because when you step on a plane, you know that the pilot has trained tricky situations in a simulator before flying you and other passengers. But when it comes to surgery, it's very different in different hospitals, in different countries, and that's our business idea. That's what Surgical Science has been working with for over 20 years. So for a long time, Surgical Science has been a research company developing a simulation platform so you can provide simulation for surgeons. And if you look at the surgeon there on the right hand side doing keyhole surgery or laparoscopy, it is actually technically very challenging, because you're standing in the OR with instruments into the body of the patient, and you're working in a volume. At the same time, you're looking up at the 2D screen and trying to rescale what you do with your hands to what you see with your eyes. So what you can really practice in a VR simulator is your technical skills and your hand-eye coordination and your psychomotor skills, so you get the muscle memory in your hands of the movements you do in a patient-safe way. And I actually, if you picture this surgeon there looking up at the screen, what they see on the screen then is, I'm going to play a video for you here, is the camera feed from inside of the body, and at the same time you're working with your instruments. So this is actually a real video of that we got from a client, and here we see an inexperienced surgeon doing this is an ectopic pregnancy. So the practicing surgeon is going to go in, make a quick cut. This should be 4 or 5 seconds in the cauterized area where you have sort of stopped the bleeding by cauterizing it. But as you can see, this is an inexperienced operator moving around with the scissors all over the place. And now actually this surgeon or surgeon in training was outside of the camera view. Then you have no idea what's happening with the instrument. You could be potentially damaging something. This video goes on, and you can see here again, here is the psychomotor skills. It's very hard with the depth perception when you work in a volume of trying to find the right place. The video ends here in a little while, and it starts bleeding, and yeah, it goes wrong basically. So I'll just move forward there. But this happens all the time. Preventable medical errors is a huge problem, but you can address it with simulation. Our business consists of two different business areas. It's what we call educational products. Those are our own simulators, our own brand. This is where we came from. This is where Surgical Science started its journey 20 years ago, doing research to develop these products. We sell these simulators primarily to university hospitals to work and use with surgeons in training, so residents, surgeons that are about to go out and work with patients. But in the last few years, the area where we have put a lot of emphasis on, and that was part of the strategy that we formed when we went public as a company, is to use our big IP base, use our technology that we've been researching in for a long time, and license that IP to med device companies. So that is to embed our technology, primarily software, directly onto the instruments of the med device companies. And this is direct sales, and this is often white labeled. So it's more of an Intel Inside kind of strategy. We put our technology inside of the med device companies' own platforms. There are great synergies between these two areas because we utilize the common IP, the software platform, and it's the same developers. It's a very niched kind of competence to develop this kind of software, and the knowledge feeds off one another, because in educational products we work with the leading university hospitals, and we have a lot of key opinion leaders that we are close to, and they're interested in what's happening, the latest development on the industry OEM side. And our industry OEM customers are very interested in academia. And also from our educational products, we get a lot of our credibility because our customers have used our products to do validation studies. And those studies proving the transference of skills from the simulator to the OR is published in journals like British Medical Journal, Annals of Surgery, etc. So our customers, without our involvement, have done a lot of the academic work to prove that this works. And that is also very important for the industry OEM customers. We work in a global business, a global niche business. We're based in Gothenburg, where the headquarters is, and also in Stockholm. So those are the two main development hubs. And then we have direct sales in North America out of Minneapolis, and we have some other direct sales markets. Otherwise, the majority of our sales in educational products are through distributors. Sort of looking at the big picture, which I think is really important, there are some strong trends that underlying strong macro trends talking in favor of our business. Number one is the increased focus on patient safety. Patient safety is becoming more and more important and being more and more identified and addressed. Number two is the transition from open surgery to minimum invasive surgery. So instead of having people suffering negative side effects such as bleeding and complications such as infections when you have to stay at the hospital, and also a prolonged period at the hospital, because after open surgery you have to stay in the hospital for a number of days, whereas in keyhole surgery you get to leave pretty much straight away, often the same day. So it's a strong trend of moving away from open surgery and using minimum invasive surgery. And actually, it's only about 40% of what can be done laparoscopically that is being done. And for robotic surgery, it's only 2%. So it's a huge potential penetration there. The third trend is the digitalization of healthcare. And this is extremely important to us because as the med device products are becoming more and more digital, you get a digital interface between the actual instrument that's inside of the body and the surgeon. It makes it much easier for us to implement pure software solutions to industry OEM customers. And the digitalization also, you get a lot of data from the digitalization that addresses and again increases the focus on patient safety, because all of a sudden what everyone knew and have always known, that there are very big differences between surgeons in terms of outcomes, all of a sudden you get proof for that. So there's a lot of things here that are talking for us. Actually, the sort of time has a little bit caught up with the idea that was the original business idea of doing virtual reality simulation for surgeons. 20 years ago, when our CTO, who's one of the founders, when he started talking about virtual reality, you couldn't Google it because basically, well, there was no Google at that time. So time has really caught up to our business idea and making our market great at the time. If you look at the product range for our educational products, we are in a couple of application niches. So we are in laparoscopy, that's sort of keyhole surgery. You see that on the left there with our LapSim, that's our flagship product. We are also in endoscopy. So that is upper GI, it's lower GI or colonoscopy, and it's bronchoscopy. And it's the same principle. It's difficult technically to learn these skills and get your muscle memory in your hands. So you need to practice in a simulator environment. We also have some other products addressing specific needs, such as TeamSim that works with scenario-based training, more team training. We have a symbol box, which is where you can use real instruments in laparoscopy, but you get the objective feedback. And none of these products are, out of a regulatory perspective, being treated as med devices. These are educational products. So this does not need to go through regulatory clearance. So these products are designed by us, but we have contract manufacturers that do the actual production. But we own all the IP to our products. Of course, these physical simulators you can see and touch, but what really makes out the majority of our technology asset, so to speak, is the software. And it's in the software we keep on investing and using research time to further develop software modules or like games, if you like that analogy. So you have a platform, which is the hardware, and then you have specific modules or games that you can practice on that platform. So we keep on adding new clinical areas. Right now we're working on a colorectal surgery module for LapSim and other work for the EndoSim platform and so on. When we sell our simulators, we sell them as a hardware package plus software package. So the range can be anything from 60,000 euro for a simulator that only has the basic modules up to 140,000, 150,000 euro for a fully loaded simulator. Then, of course, once you have the simulator, you can add on software. We have some reoccurring revenue in terms of update programs and support programs, but typically this business is a university hospital. They want to have the simulator. They go out and find the money through a grant or donation or similar. So the majority of the sale is a one-off at this stage. Just for you to get a sense, I mean, if you're then as the surgeon, you see the simulator there down on the left-hand side. If you're holding on to the instrument and just as in the OR looking up at the screen, what you then see is an organ. And this organ, this is a real-time non-linear simulation. So you can do what you want with this organ and practice your different steps. What we see here is a gallbladder and the surgical removal of the gallbladder. So the real sort of key asset in the company is this software. It's built by us 100%. It's C++ platform that we have created. And the really difficult thing is to get the physics, the interaction here between the organ and the instrument to work in a realistic way. And of course, as this is simulation, everything gets recorded and all the data get measured. So you actually get a very objective input on your performance and what you need to improve. And that's very individual for different people. Moving on to our other business area, which we call Industry OEM. That's the area where we license our technology to med device companies. The most important niche in that business area is surgical robotics. And for those of you who are not familiar with surgical robotics, it is basically a way where the surgeon controls in a console robotic arms that goes into the patient. So you get finer cut and more precision. But this is also then a digital platform. So when we implement simulation onto this platform, we can add our software directly onto the surgeon console, and the surgeon can practice the same things as you do in laparoscopy, hand-eye coordination, etc. But you don't need any separate hardware because it's already digital. The surgical robotics has had a tremendous growth over the last 10 years, originally being primarily applied in urology, so for prostatic cancer. It is now more and more being used also for general surgery and gynecology. The market leader and for a long time de facto monopolist, Intuitive Surgical, has had a fantastic growth, kept on growing 20% each quarter for a long time. But now a lot of their patents has run out a few years ago. So now we see a lot of new entrants entering into this space, and all of them will need simulation. Here are a couple of new entrants that are also customer of ours. It's CMR Surgical. We see there to the left on the hexagons to the left and top. And to the right, we see Mir Company, which is a South Korean surgical robotic manufacturer. And you can actually see on the bottom middle hexagon there, you can see the computer on the back of the console. So this is, you know, their robot, their med device, which is called Revo. That's the surgical robot. So this is the real robot. But when they practice and they do some R&D work, they do marketing, sales, and installations, and ensuring patient safety, they use a Revo Sim. So it's their simulation product. But of course, inside of that computer is 100% Surgical Science software. So there we have a business model where we get a royalty, we get a software license revenue for each serial number of the robot that they send away with simulation. And in this particular area, there is also a lot of talk about new business models. So we wouldn't be surprised or alien to this moving into more of a usage-based kind of revenue model going forward, where there could be subscription rather than one-off revenues. But that's to be seen. But Industry OEM is not only about surgical robotics. Also, other areas of med devices are becoming increasingly digital. Here's one example of, up on the right-hand side there, you see a stapler that's called Ligashore. It has a lot of intelligence built into it. It actually measures the tissue to decide, it's a tissue sealer, what you can seal and what you cannot. So as it's digital, it's very easy for us to incorporate it with their existing products. You see there at the trade show, you see our LabSim with this device integrated into LabSim. So we basically then get revenue for doing this work for our industry OEM client. We sell them LabSims, and we get fantastic marketing because they use it at trade shows and they have the best spot because they're the biggest companies. And that then spills over to our educational products. So there are great benefits of having educational products and industry OEM together. About a year ago, we did an acquisition of a company called Sense Graphics that is now fully incorporated in Surgical Science. And this was really a fantastic fantastic company with two fantastic entrepreneurs that had done an amazing job of focusing solely on industry OEM and focusing solely on software. So they had some customers in that area, and they also had some technology, especially on the graphical rendering side, so shadows and lights and colors and that kind of stuff, whereas Surgical Science had has a more advanced technology in terms of physics to get the realistic movement and interaction between organ and an instrument. So we acquired this company, got some great customers, got a fantastic developer team, and also a very profitable business. So we can then keep on working with those customers, and our goal is then to provide those customers with more content as that exists in Surgical Science. And going forward, we are also having acquisitions as part of our strategy, because we believe we can take an active role in the consolidation of the medical simulation business, with our platform being a Nasdaq First North growth market company. A couple of details on the deal we did then about a year ago. We paid 300 million on a cash and debt-free basis, and it was a split of 40% shares and 60% cash, which was very important to us because the two founders are still very active in the business. And in this deal, we also got some very good new institutional owners. So AP2, AP4, Handelsbanken Fonder, and TIN Fonder were among the ones that took part in the direct share issue. I have a couple of slides. The financial goals. Financial goals after the acquisition was updated. So our goal is to have 400 million in revenue by 2024. And this figure may include complementary acquisitions. And for our educational products, the sort of base of Surgical Science, we expect an average growth of 50% per year over this time period up to 2024. In industry OEM, it's a bit more uneven growth, because if you do a project to integrate your software onto a med device platform, you first get consulting revenue for the adaptation and connecting the API to your software and adding some instruments. And then there could be a period where there are no revenue, basically, because your partner is doing regulatory process or launching the product. And then when our customer has volume, we get license revenue. We also set an EBITDA target of 40%, which we actually, the acquisition was incorporated by July 1st. So in Q3, which was the first full quarter with the acquired business being part of Surgical Science, we had 43% EBITDA, and I think it was pretty much the same in Q4. So long term, we have at least 40% EBITDA as target. Now looking at Q1, I have some Q1 figures here, and then I'm going to stop and open up for questions. It was a rather weak quarter for us, and we actually sent out a press release early on as soon as we got visibility, where we said that we expected 50% lower revenue in educational products for the quarter due to the pandemic COVID-19 situation. And that in turn has to do with the fact that our strongest individual market is China. That's where we sell the most educational simulators. And when we released the Q1 here in the beginning of May, you could see that we only had 7.4 million in educational product sales. So it turned out to be pretty much as we said in the press release, roughly half of what we could have expected. Industry OEM was 12.3 million. On comparable units, sort of comparing pro forma with Sense Graphics, then if Sense Graphics had been part of our business, it was a decrease of 29%. The net result was then a slight deficit. The other point I wanted to make after the Q1 figures was if we look at the balance sheet, we have a very strong balance sheet. So we're still at the cash position going out of Q1 of almost 69 million Swedish crowns. So that was pretty much the same as when we exited 2019. So cash flow has been still strong for us. That's it. I pretty much kept it on the 25-minute mark, so we will have some time for questions.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Gisli. Peter, will you start off with some questions or?
Yeah, sure. So Gisli, I noted that, for instance, when you took over Sensatronic or Sense Graphics, I mean, the revenues were similar between yours and Sense, but there was a stark difference in terms of the bottom line. What sort of are the structural differences between the two business models with similar, revenues, but large differences in profits?
Mm-hmm. Well, bottom line is the higher degree of software, the more profitable.
Okay.
So, educational products, if you look at our quarterly reports, way back when our industry OEM sales were very low, the gross profit is still good. It's 75% approximately. But it scales at a much higher volume. So again, going back to the trends, the more you can do digitally with less hardware involved, because when you have hardware, you have shipping and you have service and you have installations, etc. The better. So software, high degree of software is definitely a key. Also, I think Sense Graphics was at the time of acquisition, being a great company, because it truly is, great people, but it sort of hit the ceiling. It was a little bit underinvested. It was basically developers and a couple of more people. We, on the other hand, had put a lot of resources and efforts into growing processes and support functions in order to be able to do an acquisition like that and in order to be able to grow. So I think also Sense Graphics was maybe at the stage where they would have needed to invest in a bit more surrounding support functions.
And now turning to your, relatively aggressive revenue target of 400 million. That's at least factor 4 from where we are now. Yeah. What is sort of the strategic direction of that growth as you see it in versus Edu versus OEM? And is there anything third that you should be prepared that you might add that you're perhaps not talking about right now?
Well, we put up the specific, 15% target growth in revenues for educational products. And then, you quickly do the maths and you realize that, okay, more growth is going to come from industry OEM. So, and that is definitely true. And in industry OEM, surgical robotics is the most important niche, but it's not the only niche. There is a lot of different other areas where you can apply our kind of IP and our kind of technology. So in order to reach that target, we need to supply more content to our existing customers. We need to sign some more industry OEM customers, and those customers needs to be successful in terms of getting their volumes up in sales. And then it could be some also acquisitions, because that is continuing being part of our strategy. To if we have the right opportunity at the right price, we are open to making more acquisitions.
And what are the let's say the natural acquisition multiples within your industry? Are we talking about tech-like multiples? I guess that's what we're talking about if we're talking software.
Yeah, hard for me to comment on, and it depends on so many things. I mean, I think that the multiples we did acquisition last year, the multiples were very good, but I think they were very favorable. But they were also very favorable for the sellers because they were entrepreneurs. They cared a lot about their company. They wanted to be sure that their company ended up in good hands, and they kept on being active in the company. They both are the two former owners, rather than perhaps being acquired by a medtech company. So I think there are good deals to be made, but we basically have a picture of what we like to see, how we like the puzzle to be laid out. But it's a lot about timing and so yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so perhaps over to Michael just to check if there are questions from the audience. Otherwise, I can continue with a few.
Yeah, no, I have a couple of questions, and you just go back to, you had one slide where you were talking about the move from open surgery to minimal invasive surgery, and just for me to understand the logic, how much, I guess there is a monetary incentive in that move, that fewer hospital nights and so on. How big is that incentive? How many less hospital nights do you usually have with a peephole surgery compared to an open surgery? I mean, how much can the hospital save on this transformation?
It varies a lot from procedure to procedure. But if you take hysterectomy, for example, which is a common gynecology procedure, I think in the United States, it's actually more than 50% of the women at a certain age that have a hysterectomy. It's some markets very common procedure. I mean, if you do it laparoscopically or robotically, you go home the same day. If you do it open surgery, you may be in the hospital 3-4 nights. So that's a big difference in cost, but also in terms of the bikini line afterwards. The scarring and the risks that you acquire infections and so on. So I think we will keep on seeing the transition from open to laparoscopy, primarily in countries that have reached a socio-economic level where it makes sense. That's why we've seen such a tremendous growth in China, for example. And then you have a lot of surgeons that are used to doing open surgery that needs to do it laparoscopically. They need training.
Yeah.
And then robotic surgery, I think, will grow even faster. That will have a very strong growth. Look at all third-party sources. Everyone believes robotic surgery will have a very strong growth.
Do you also have insurance companies, etc., in pushing for this transformation? Because it must be in their interest as well. Do you have other type of, like, insurance company lobbying for this transition, or is it that?
But you know what, Michael? Who are the biggest advocates and the most important target groups when it comes to transitioning to robotic surgery?
I don't.
No, it's the surgeons themselves.
Yeah.
if you are a surgeon and you're working laparoscopy, you know that you won't make it until retirement age working 100%. I mean, your neck, your arms, I mean, it's terrible. You saw the picture from my presentation, how you stand hovering over the patient, looking up at the screen, where you could be sitting comfortably in a surgeon's console and do your work. So they are big also advocate for robotics, and they are powerful. So the whole ecosystem talks in favor for more robotic as well as laparoscopy. But robotic will be the fastest grower going forward, and it's a digital platform.
Yeah, and actually on that with the robots, I saw in the picture that there was actually a cable between where the workstation where the doctor was sitting and the robots. I guess they are in the same room. Would it be possible to have a centralized doctor's place servicing many different hospitals at a centralized location and having remote robots, or is that too much latency or stuff like that to make that happen?
No, you can do it. Technically, you can do it. And actually, when surgical robotics started out, I mean, the first R&D money put into it was from the United States military forces. I mean, it was defense budget money, because the idea was to make surgery on soldiers in field back from United States. So you can do it, but it's being done very limited, because when you talk to the surgeons, they still want to be close to the patient. You know, if something goes wrong, and you have a whole surgical team. You know, you have the anesthesiologist, you have the scrub nurse, the circulating nurse, etc. So you can do it technically, but it's not being done in a very big in any volume.
No. But if you take that one step further, and I apologize in advance because this is a real layman question, but I mean, we all know about augmented reality. Mm-hmm. Would it be possible to actually have like switching this robot to an actual human with excellent hand and eye coordination? So he's in working with that team, whilst you have a centralized doctor, and he is using VR glasses or something like that, performing the surgery, and you will still have that human touch of him being close.
Yes, I mean,
the scale of the doctors, and because I guess they are a limited factor in case of surgeries and stuff like that.
Yes, I think in all these digital platforms, we will see a lot of new features and a lot of new applications that can be incorporated. So definitely, as I think we will see a lot of that going forward. What I don't think we will see for a very long time is the robot that operates by itself, like the Prometheus alien movie, when Ripley is lying there and she's pressing a few buttons and out comes a robot and does the surgery. That's very much science fiction. That's going to take a long time.
Yeah. And then just one final question from me, going back to the financials, because you were mentioning that the recurring revenues are a very small part today, and then most of the, at least within the educational products, and that most buyers, they want the product per se, so they buy it in a one-off transaction. But I also thought I heard you emphasize saying at this stage. Should we read anything into that when you're saying at this stage, that do you have other thoughts for the future, making the revenue stream a bit more recurring than it is today, maybe?
Yeah, of course. I mean, reoccurring revenue, right? That's what we all.
Yeah.
So I mean, in educational products, we have tried a little bit. We have a entry-level product called Lapsim Essence. It's a stripped back hardware, no camera, no haptics, small and portable. And that one we have on a subscription basis. but so far the revenue is very limited, and I think it could change going forward. But so far, the university hospitals, they tend to be sort of budget driven and getting a donation, and then when they get the money, they sort of spend it all. I think this transition could be faster in industry OEM, where you see new surgical robotic entrants, for example, entering and talking about placing the robots without cost and then charging for usage instead. And there, of course, we are open, and we are close to our customers. So if we can get a reasonable value, a reasonable amount of money for the value we provide, I mean, we could definitely see ourselves entering into models like that.
Yeah. I think that's it for me. I don't know, Peter, do you have any last remarks that you want to ask Gisli about?
I mean, I can see we are.
Yeah, but we still.
I can.
We can do another.
Fire away with 1-2 questions. Okay. Well, let me just go for 2 questions then. You're talking a lot of IP. Anything we should be aware of regarding your, IP situation? I guess software is an evolving thing. And I guess you make updates and beta versions 1.0, 1.3 all the time. So how is that situation in terms of your IP?
Sorry, I don't really quite understand the question.
Because the IP is protected by patents, and I guess you have some kind of intellectual property protection that sort of, protects your core product.
Then I understand the question. Sorry about that. Yes, we have some patents, but I think the most important thing is that it is actually really difficult to develop this kind of sophistication and realism and something that mimics reality to the degree in real-time simulation that you can actually use it. And of course, we never give out the source code, so it's only executables that we supply our various customers with, both educational products and industry OEM. So we have seen other companies try to do something similar, but they usually give up. We are a couple of competitors in this space, but it is a niche market with few players, and I think it will remain in that way.
So just one final question: are you a takeover candidate? And in that case, what kind of company would sort of have you as an interesting takeover candidate?
Well, of course, very speculative answer from me on that question, because I mean, I think that companies with unique technology, and you're seeing unique technology being applied in a broader way in the R&D process. Simulation is playing a bigger and bigger role because it's so much less costly to get customer input on a simulated idea than having to, go all the way to have it ready and then get input. To regulatory processes where it becomes increasingly important to demonstrate that you have a patient-safe way of introducing new technology. So I think simulation will play a bigger and bigger role for the large med device companies. So yeah, if I were to speculate, I wouldn't be surprised if big med device companies, I mean, they keep on doing technology acquisitions. They could be interested in that, but that's pure speculation from me. I spend much more time thinking about what we can buy rather than who can buy us.
That sounds like a good plan, Gisli. So I guess that sums it up. And thank you very much, Gisli, for participating at our seminar. And it was a pleasure seeing your presentation and getting your answers. And I wish you best of luck in the future.
Good. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you for participating.
Bye.
Bye-bye.